In this class I will revise cell. Okay, so let's start with some topics. So let's do cell organelles. So the first will be nucleus. So basically, nucleus in animal cells is usually present in the center or the middle of the cell, and in the plant cell it's usually present in the periphery of the cell due to the large central vacuole present. So to define nucleus, we can write it as a double membranous organelle. So it is double membranous, which means it has two membranes. So it is a double membranous organelle. It contains DNA in the form of chromatin in a non-dividing cell and chromosomes in a dividing cell. Okay, so chromatin in non-dividing cell, chromosome in dividing cell. Basically, when cell is dividing, the chromatin gets into compact form, which is the condensed form, which is the chromosomes, and it also contains many enzymes which really control the metabolic activities occurring in the cell. So basically, it's a center, or we can say that it controls the activities, metabolic activities, with a more descriptive word, of the cell. So these 3 points have been done, and one more function of the cell would be it plays a central part, plays an important role in cell division. Basically, nucleus contains all the information, the genes which really help to make the proteins. So to transfer the hereditary characters from the parent cell to the offspring, the nucleus is required, since the chromosomes, the chromatin have the DNA which contains genes which really are codes which help us write, or which help us to know the information, to make proteins, and to basically carry out all the metabolic activities. So nucleus is a very crucial part in cell division. So you can say these two are functions. You'll study them in great detail in higher classes like 10th and 11th, but for now this will suffice. The second organelle will be mitochondria. First, let's make a diagram of mitochondria. We'll also make the diagram of nucleus after making this diagram of mitochondria. Basically, this one I'm making is the outer membrane, and this folded and this membrane in the many shapes is the inner membrane. So basically, mitochondria is also double membranous. It's a double membrane organelle. So this is the outer membrane, and the spaces between membranes are filled with fluid, perhaps the lumen, and the sphere projections are the inner membrane. This makes a bit clear. So there's a lumen, L-U-M-E-N. It's also better to label the diagram on the right side, but you can label on any side if necessary. It's just a good practice we follow. So there's outer membrane, the lumen, and the inner membrane is folded into projections or folded into cristae. These shapes we call cristae, and we can see the matrix, the fluid in the mitochondria. As we know, the cell contains cytoplasm. In the same way, the mitochondria, in a similar way, mitochondria has matrix. So matrix, and there are many ribosomes present. But note that the cell, which means that attached to the ER or in the cytoplasm, the cell has 80S ribosomes. S is the Svedberg unit, and in the mitochondria 70S ribosomes are present. So we can say 70S ribosomes. And of course DNA. And also note that in mitochondria circular DNA is present, while in the cell, which means in the nucleus, the DNA with the double helix structure is present. Basically the structure is same, but a different type of DNA is present. So basically there's a difference between the DNA of mitochondria and the DNA of nucleus. And anyways, since we know that mitochondria is present in the cell, we can also conclude that the DNA and the ribosomes that mitochondria contains is not enough to survive on its own. Otherwise it would just be autonomous and not need the cell. So it is obvious that as of this stage, the mitochondria needs the cell for some of the DNA, some of the proteins. It can't make all of them. It can make some of them, but it cannot make all of the protein and DNA. Okay. So let's come to the first. Let's write contains DNA and 70S ribosomes. Now let's come to chloroplast. It's also double membranous organelle. Let's draw its structure. And now these are connected by the stroma lamellae. So we can say that diagram. So this is a thylakoid. So basically this singular structure thylakoid and this collective structure grana. So to repeat, the singular coin-like structure is thylakoid and the stack of coins like structure is grana. And these connections which are interconnecting the grana are known as stroma lamellae. And of course, a matrix-like fluid is present which is known as stroma. So basically it's similar to cytoplasm. And for your extra knowledge, this is not in class 9th or an easier knowledge, but it's an extra piece of information. So basically there are two types of reactions, light reaction and dark reaction. So basically light reaction happens in the thylakoid lumen, or we can say thylakoid lumen, and the dark reaction happens in the stroma. Basically the light reaction is photosynthesis. And of course one more thing, that on this thylakoid, let's zoom in. To make it more clear, let's use green color. On the thylakoid, something like this is present. So on the thylakoid, pigment called chlorophyll is present. So these green pigment is the chlorophyll which is present on the thylakoid. So this helps in the photosynthesis process. So we say that the light reaction So we can say that the light reaction occurs in the thylakoid lumen, which is the photosynthesis process occurs in the thylakoid lumen, and the dark reaction, which is the conversion of the photosynthesis resultant, which is the starch or anything, the energy, basically the conversion of energy into ATP and ADP. So ATP is like the normal currency and ADP is also formed. Okay, so ATP, actually ADP is not formed, ADP is a precursor to ATP. So ATP is formed and NADP is formed, NADPH, which is basically like a gold bar. When you go out to buy something in the market, you buy with, say, rupees notes, which is the ATP, but the NADP is like the gold bar, it has more energy contained. So basically ATP and NADP are energy currencies, but ATP is the most common one. So ATP is the resultant of photosynthesis. So actually let's not delve into that now. Let's just learn that there are two reactions, light reaction and dark reaction. So light reaction basically occurs in the thylakoid lumen and the dark reaction occurs in the stroma. So that's all for today. We'll continue the next organelles in the next class. Thank you. Please subscribe to my channel and continue watching. Thank you.